Apartheid, during it, South Africa was pious. It was holy, but afflicted. It was oppressed. It is even written in the book of Ecclesiastes, in the scriptures, that it is better to be in a household of mourning, in other words, of crying, than it is to be in a household full of joy and happiness. Because where there is mourning, there is closeness to God. There is piety. There's holiness. So it is better to be in a house full of mourning and of bitterness than in a house that has got happiness. Because when people are happy, that's when they start to forget God. They feel like they don't need Him anymore. And South Africa was in mourning and bitterness of soul during apartheid, and so it made them pious. It made them godly. It made them prayerful, and it made them long to get out of a war. Do you understand? And so when then they finally cracked out of it, when they broke through and conquered apartheid, those who tried to resist the change, God immediately snuffed them out like a flame. He was just like, He put like a covering over a flame or some. You are not going to regress this nation back to where it comes from, due to the fact that I am answering prayer. I am giving reprieve and relief to the oppressed, and you're not going to stand in my way. He is the God of the fatherless, the father of the fatherless, and He is the God of the widow and the orphan, and He will not abandon the widow and the orphan to their oppressors, those who hate the poor and seek to put the needy to death. He will not let them get their way. Do you understand? Go read Psalm 37. He will not forsake His saints. So the Lord would not forsake His saints in this country. And the saints across all races who had been raising up prayers which were a good fragrance going up the nostrils of God, when then there were resistors to the change, God just snuffed out their bombs. Everything that was to derelict, or not derelict, sorry, but derelize the movements forward. God was like, no, not on my watch. Like, my people have suffered long enough. I'm gonna give them a new South Africa. And so all their strategies to block progress and to regress us back into civil war, to keep a wicked regime running, they were blocked, they were stopped. Well, God did no such thing in 2014 for me. He did 2015-14. He did no such thing for me. He did not block destruction. He did not block resistance or opposition to a desire for change, because there were literally not enough people on the ground that He would be doing this for. God saw it fit to protect me from a dying country rather than rescue the whole land. What I am is a byword, guys. I am a snare to those who have afflicted me. All these years that I have been incarcerated, albeit being innocent, has made South Africa look hella nasty. And it has caused all of my enemies to obviously be revealed as witches. South Africa is looking very bad, and look at the decisions it's currently making. I did a video just 2 days ago talking about South Africa's policy decision to even cut diplomatic ties with Israel and be pro-Palestine, to a point even of wanting to get rid of the Israeli embassy in South Africa. And I made mention of how it is that if at all you curse Abraham, you curse yourself as a land. And I spoke also about how it is that it's been a minute since South Africa has been blasphemous against God in the government. A lot of times, you know, they've been from a position of authority, they've been blaspheming God, and it's been years. And so for them to graduate to a height of even rejecting the people of God and cutting diplomatic relations with them in this season, that's like basically the gavel being put down and the final nail being put in the coffin of a country that's otherwise been very incredibly disrespectful to God and blasphemous. And Christians are not even being heard by God, because if at all you walk in sin, your prayers are going to get hindered. If at all you are still wicked and you are claiming to be of God, your prayers are an abomination to Emmanuel. He will not be mocked. Do you understand what I'm saying? So all that this destruction of South Africa means is that the church is apostate. There are no Christians here left except for a remnant. And when there is only a remnant in a nation, God is not going to rescue the country for the sake of the remnant. He will take the remnant and destroy the country. That's what God does. When a whole nation, when an entire nation is abominable in His eyes, He will look for enough people that are of Him, that live in that space, and for their sake He would rescue it if there were enough of them. But when it's such a small number, it would grieve the heart of God for Him to continue to linger that particular ecosystem on behalf of His people, while they continue to grieve Him, and also while they continue to persecute His people. If His people cannot live at peace with the people in that land, the scriptures, it is written, if it is possible, live at peace with everyone. When it is near and impossible for Christians to live at peace with everyone around them, that means this country country does not want the peace that the Christian is insisting on, right? The Lord says of us as believers in the Beatitudes that blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. If all of our endeavors to foster diplomacy, if all of our endeavors to cease hostilities against us never work, if all of our efforts land on deaf ears and people insist on persecuting us even though we want peace with them, God is not going to suffer that land much longer. He will just merely take his disciples out. If anything, he said, if you give the gospel to one town and they reject it, dust your feet off, for it will be a better day on the day of judgment for the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and of Sidon and Tyre than it will be for that land. And also, if they invite you into their households, where it is that you go into a new town, bless them and bless that whole household. But if they close their doors on you, if they shut their doors on you, then I guess turn your back on them, basically spit on the floor where you're at. It'll be far worse on judgment day for those people than it will be for you. And also the Bible says if they persecute you in one town, flee to the next. So God does not insist that Christians ride out persecution just perpetually, like on a loop, wire, just enduring persecution. He says if they persecute you, get out, right? So the Lord will not suffer his saints to merely just live being ping-ponged and treated like trash in any ecosystem without him rescuing his children and then basically sending a deluge on the remaining obstinate generation in that land. He will destroy Sodom, but first taking out Lot. He will destroy the whole world, but first take out Noah and his family. You understand what I'm saying? So if a country rejects Christians and the believers, no matter how hard they try to foster peace, get nowhere, and they are now basically stranded in their own country, they are stranded in their own skin, they're like lepers in their own land and nobody wants to touch them, God is not even going to give redemption to that Christian while that Christian is in that land. Because if that Christian gets breakthrough anyway in that country, albeit having a hail of bullets coming at them from many other places, it awards the wicked an opportunity to rise up in sabotage against that person and trip them up. It awards the people around that person to basically make their lives a living nightmare in a state of breakthrough. How can I use an example? Think, for instance, about a Christian couple, a Christian woman meeting a Christian man after praying for a very long amount of time, and the two of them fall in love. But they fall in love in a pagan nation that absolutely hates Jesus, that is always practicing witchcraft, and is always coming up in using demonic methodologies against this particular couple. This couple living in this pagan nation, you know how it is written of Lot in Sodom, that he was always grieved by the ways of people in Sodom. You cannot live at peace when you're encircled by that much wickedness as a righteous man. It makes your lifestyle, your life, a living nightmare. Hosea was always grieving because his wife was a harlot. Jeremiah was always crying. And if God wants to give his people peace, he will not linger them in a country that hates him. He will not just give them breakthrough, even though they live amidst the people who don't desire to see the breakthrough for them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because then on that day there will be no tranquility and no peace. So the married couple that finally finds each other, so the woman prays for her husband and the husband prays for a wife, and they meet in a country that is deliberately trying to make sure they don't come together, but God gives them breakthrough anyway. They're going to spend their marriage fighting darts coming from outside. Their wedding day is going to be somber and sad because of the level of opposition that it's going to endure. Their first pregnancy is going to be somber and sad because of the level of opposition that they're going to endure. Their reception is going to be sad. Friends at the wedding are going to be passing the groom and the bride shade. They will not be truly of heart and mind with the groom and the bride as they send them off into their future. There is going to be so much sabotage and so much a calculated and deceptive interruption of this thing that is going on, that there will be no true peace and no true joy. I had a friend who got married in a climate of so much jealousy that she could not be happy on her wedding day. Two former friends that got married, and both of them bridal shower and the wedding was a somber, it's like there was a thunderous rumbling in the sky because of how the bride was obviously not happy on her wedding day because of sabotage by friends and a lack of true gladness for the fact that it was her day. It was a day she was getting married. That's South Africa for you. That is South Africa. Do you understand? Those friends of mine that got married, one of them I didn't get to attend her wedding because it was one of those, I wasn't close enough to her to make it to the white wedding type establishment thing, but I was at her bridal shower. Like, it's one of those you pay by per head type thing, so she had to make a choice out of all of us who to invite. I wasn't offended because I wasn't that tight with her anyway, so I was just glad that she was getting married. But on her bridal shower, there was so much animosity, hatred. Like, you know when you're busy giving a person a present with namby-pamby flaccid hands, and you could actually almost drop it before they pick it up and be like, whoops, knowing that it is like a whole fragile, like, cutlery, or what is this, crockery set that you bought her. The climate of envy was so thick to a point of sabotage that this chick had to fake and pose. She had to be a poser. Do you understand? At her own bridal shower, so she does not walk out, since you have done this sweet gesture for me to throw me a bridal shower. But she could pick up there was hostilities in the room. Like, if your bridesmaids, your maiden of honor is not happy for you on your wedding day, she shouldn't be your maiden of honor, shushi. But a lot of people have settled in the country for that. The one whose wedding I was at, we were like properly invited to the reception and everything. Our names written on some elaborate cute little cards and whatnot, names and surnames and everything. You felt so special when you got there. But like, she couldn't even look at us when she was doing the photos, when she was doing when the cameraman was busy taking photos in the garden later on. She could not even look at us. I wanted to smile and hug her and be like, congratulations, but she was literally she was avoiding us because she did not know out of all of us who is sabotaging her. She just felt bad vibes. So if a married couple, a couple that is praying to God for wives, for each other, when they meet in a climate like that, they are going to have a horrible wedding day. They're gonna have sabotage even when they move into their house together, and like everything is just gonna be breaking apart. There's gonna be so many witchcraft spells coming at you. And now, as a Christian, well, the two of you as born again believers have power to conquer serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. You are given weapons of warfare from God, which are not carnal, but are mighty in God for the pulling down of strongholds. True story. But nonetheless, spiritual war is still spiritual war, meaning that it will affect in your body with physical manifestations of things like fatigue. You are going to be bloodshot in your eyes. You're going to struggle to sleep even though you've got an exorbitance of fatigue in your body. Once you do go to bed, you will have insomnia. You're going to get nightmares. You're going to have to fast. You're going to have to pray. So now when you are surrounded as a Christian couple in a country like that, do you understand? You will never stop being a spiritual war. You and your wife will struggle to enjoy your marriage because you're always going to have to be in a fast. I don't know how many times I'm always fasting. You're always going to have to be praying. You're always going to have to be covering exorbitantly your children with prayer. They will come up against everything. A jealous conglomerate that cannot exercise self-control and brittle their flesh and under the submission of the Holy Spirit cannot be trusted. The climate of their insanity is such that you do better by moving out of that ecosystem where it is that it'll be a little bit better off for you. So you know that a country is judged by God when Christians are in 24-hour-a-day spiritual war, when there is like a psychosis in the kingdom of darkness to a point where they will give absolutely no believer rest. They will give no one rest. Everybody is just always coming at you. There's so many flying kicks in the sky that you can't catch a break. You are always entering into a fight with your husband only for you guys to snap out of it and realize that this is war. This is spiritual war. Somebody's trying to sow discord in our marriage. So yes, as a Christian couple, you conquer. But in a country that is as diabolical and as forgotten its first love as South Africa, you are going to be in a lot more spiritual war as a married couple than is absolutely necessary. You're going to have to be a lot more astute, a lot more acute, tuned in to the spirit to recognize that the fight you're having over the toothpaste that was left in a strange part of the bathroom, you will realize that it's spiritual. You will realize that you are meant to fight. And so reconcile and do better. But the fact that you have to be that distracted all the time is entirely unacceptable, and God does not want his children living like that. He does not. He says if a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, he will make his enemies live at peace with them. That's why God sometimes arranges for asylum for Christian converts, to people who convert to Christianity in nations that are very hostile. That's why sometimes he arranges for them to move to other countries so they can live out their lives in fullness. Otherwise, it's impossible to live. Only go and interview Christians living in Iran and ask them how day-to-day life is. Christians living in Afghanistan. Christians living in North Korea. Their lives, they can never have the joy, bountiful, really, that comes with Christianity due to the fact that there's always so much striving around them. They cannot flee their towns that are persecuting them. If they persecute you in one town, flee to the next. If you cannot flee, you are stuck in an ecosystem that's always flogging you, an ecosystem that's always crucifying you. They will make out of you a second-class citizen. That's why Christians in India are having such a hard time. That is why, if at all you can move, if you're a Muslim convert to Christianity in the Middle East, if if you can move to the West, if you can move to a European country or to North America or somewhere in Africa where it is that the gospel is appreciated, you're going to have a far better life than you ever can have in the Middle East. So if you have the resources to move, move. But those who can't move essentially are martyrs of the faith. They are martyrs. And God does not intend for every Christian on the planet to be a martyr. So if your land is producing martyrs out of Christians instead of thriving citizens, it's judged entirely. And God is not about to go and give prosperity to Christians in a land where they are insisted upon to ending up as martyrs. He won't do that, because when you bless a Christian in that ecosystem, you put them in a position to be more severely abused by the people around. Nobody who is hateful of God's children is going to want to see the prosperity of those children of God. So when they get something good, there is going to be an immediate attempt at stealing, theft. There's going to be a kleptomania in the sky, that they're sniffing from the drugs of the occult and they're going to bewitch that particular person. So the best way to protect a Christian in a land that produces martyrs out of believers is to keep them lowly. It is to keep them lowly, because in their lowliness they are not as focused on as as they would be. In their lowliness they are less likely to be hired on them whole contract assassins. If at all you keep them lowly, they're less likely to attract more attention, and so the peace of the Lord will linger on them. Their weeping will endure for the night, but their joy will come in the morning. When they're kept in a lowly position, they are better able to live a successful life in Christ, for the Lord will give them everything they need to live a life in godliness. If they gain their prosperity, they're going to be targeted by bigger sharks. They're going to be targeted by bigger dogs. They're going to be targeted by people that are going to put them in the ground. And if God has no interest that you should be put in the ground, He will keep you lowly until He can get you to a place where you can be successful without enduring that much spiritual abuse. So, having spoken that at length, you must comprehend that my inability to get a job in a whole decade, and so therefore find my prosperity, my inability to meet a man, and so therefore get those babies, get that marriage, that wedding day, get everything I want, has been an act of protection. I had to be kept lowly. Otherwise, my children would have been the target of satanic spells. My husband and I, our wedding day, we would have lived a very uncomfortable and unfortunate life. And there is glory in a testimony of a Christian living as a second-class citizen in her country for the glory of God. When she is suffering for Christ, there is a glory to be acquired in that state. Do you understand? There is a heaven that is receiving that as praise and worship to a holy God. So there is glory in persecution and in suffering. However, when you go and you grab a Christian and give them prosperity anyway, in a land where no one wants them to succeed, there is shame 24 hours a day on the part of the Christian. There is sabotage of which it basically reviles the name of God and makes it look as if though God is not looking out for His Christians. The Lord prides Himself in evidencing His strength in a weak Christian. And if at all people insist on weakening a Christian in an ecosystem, God will pride Himself in making her super glorious in her weakness. But if the Lord gives her strength, or Him strength, in spite of all of the attack coming around, there will be so much sabotage that it will appear as if though the glory of God has left that person. So sometimes God keeps Christians lowly, especially when they come from persecuting countries. He keeps them lowly, so in their lowliness they will still slay those who have a lot. They will still slay everybody. They will essentially conquer and achieve and do really well in spite of abuse. Do you understand what I'm saying? In spite of mistreatment, in spite of the maligning of their names, they will do so successfully that it will be evident that God is God. That it will be evident that they have been standing with Baal and that they ought abandon Baal worship. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, so my lowliness was essentially a plan from God. It was a plan from God. Let me go on right ahead to explain this dream that I had. I just want to be able to work this thing on the side too. Yo, I'm so backlogged. Like, I thoroughly think that it would probably benefit me quite a lot if I restarted my computer, because everything is just so slow. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, I tried to multitask, but I can't over there. So in my dream, before even I get to my dream, alright, my apartment that I was living in, that I got a 2-bed, because I was planning a future of ultimately buying a 2-bedroom house for my first home that is mine, as in like it's a mortgage, it's not rental. I intended to get, of course, mortgage once I was back at work, because I could not apply for a home loan unemployed. successfully anyway. So I intended to buy a 2-bedroom house, and I wanted to lack nothing by the time I bought that house in terms of furniture. So I fully furnished a 2-bed, planning on getting my first apartment, my first home bought as a 2-bed. And I never got a job. I never got a job. The whole year came and the whole year went, and I stayed unemployed. It had to be a 2-bed because I was never ever going to rent my apartment out to students, and a 1-bed apartment always subjugates you to the tyranny of that. I wanted a mature couple being the first people to live in my houses. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And here it is that a woman with those kinds of plans, with that kind of strategy, is now living by herself in this apartment. And in this apartment, I continue to do the work of the Lord. Why was I even persecuted like this in the first place? Because I chose Christ. People envied me from the time I was at work, right? When I was still working, Go MTN, I had a blog that I was writing in. I did a lot of poetry. And some of my colleagues happened upon my blog because all you needed to do to find a person, my blog, was to Google, research my first name and surname. My first name and surname, all you had to do was Google them, and you would find my blog. And some people cyber stalk you purely because they are obsessed or addicted to you. Like they are, what do you call this thing? They are already kind of full of sabotage where you're concerned, and so they will just look you up to see what you've done, where you went to school. They will try and find your LinkedIn profile and what have you. And so one of the first things that popped up when you typed in Karabo Hlongwane was my blog, because in my about page I put my whole full name on there, guys, and it was it literally ranked it ranked very high on SEO for whatever reason. If you typed my name, you would find my blog. And I changed my my about page. I changed my name from Karabo Hlongwane to Cranberry K because it was very easy to find my blog by typing in basically my name, because I understood. I got to a point where I ended up scared of jealousy. I got so abused that I was like, I don't want people that I don't lead to my blog. I don't want people that I don't deliberately or directly say, I write, I do poetry, I do ABC, check out my content. Unless I tell you, I didn't want you going to look at me. I only wanted people that I trusted reading my stuff, because I wasn't even trying to become a big author or whatever, or get hits, or even monetize my blog. I never intended to do anything of that nature. It was just a hobby where I was writing about Jesus, and I trusted that WordPress would, I guess, proliferate my content and others would read it, and whoever I would lead to my blog. Because of the fact that my name led to my blog, a lot of my colleagues found my blog. A lot of random strangers that knew my name and surname would Google me, find my blog, and it caused so much jealousy. People on Facebook, it caused so much jealousy that I got bewitched because of my relationship with Jesus. I was writing about Christ almost every single day, did a lot of poetry and also a lot of just general written pieces, and it awarded me a lot of persecution. People envied my fervor for Jesus after I got saved. They envied my fervency for Christ after I got saved, you guys, and it caused them to bewitch everything in my life. Like everything. It made them bewitch my writing. It made them bewitch my career. It made them bewitch my prospects for marriage. Like, so many things came at me until I got to a point where I was like, just because I am using my talents for Christ, look at all these South Africans literally tripping me up because I now love God enough to write for him. So I decided to change my name on my blog so I'm not findable anymore. But by then people already had my link. My colleagues were during the time when I was losing everything, I was writing about my pain and my sorrow in a very general, ubiquitous fashion without naming names. I was writing about my pain because I was at home and I had nothing else. And they found my blog. Like, all they needed to do was type Karabo Hlongwane. They found my blog, and upon reading my blog, they then persecuted me using my faith based on what I was writing in my blog. I ended up changing my name so no one can find me. But like I said, by the time I changed my name, I'd already been pursued with witchcraft by so many people who envied my relationship with Jesus. They envied it so much that they bewitched me just from my blog alone. So changing things to Cranberry K did not achieve much. Changing things to Cranberry K did not do anything, because by then I'd already gathered for myself lots of rubbish Do you understand? Cyber stalking got me hurt something bad, but before I made those changes, like I said, people had already afflicted me. So that was the first sign of South African apostasy, the first sign of South Africans hating God, to a point where when somebody converts and they give themselves fully and comprehensively to Jesus, they get treated like that. They get treated like that. I should not have been that badly treated by this country for choosing Jesus because it claimed to be Christian. People should have been happy for me, and they should have also embraced the fact that I loved the Lord, guys. Because I mean, like, when I was in high school, I had these friends that all used to go to church every Sunday, and I was the only one that was unchurched. I was the only one that was like irreligious, you know. Everybody was going to some Christian church, and there was one Jehovah's Witness. And when I finally gave my life to Jesus, they should have been like, whoa, Karabo finally joined us. Karabo finally joined us. Instead, they persecuted me. They persecuted me. And it would take a good, like 2 years for me to get so fed up with that level of persecution that I would end up changing my name in my blog. It achieved nothing, because by then I already had for myself cyber stalkers. They already had links to my blog. They were no longer Googling me, just merely using my keywords. Their computers had memory. You know, when typing history, you automatically just come across a person's blog. Yeah, to this day, those beasts, many of those animals that afflicted me with witchcraft, still find look for me in my blog. They still search for me in my blog. And you see, the thing about my blog is it has now today, my blog has a YouTube link to it, right? I have ever since then revamped my blog. There was a time when I even bought the domain, so I got a new template and everything. I was writing until I stopped because WordPress, given that it's an American brand, made a decision to persecute me too, by shadow banning me. So I haven't been writing off late. It's been maybe like 4 or 5 months since I wrote, type thing. But there was a time when I was kind of looking forward to growing my blog. And during that time, I revamped everything. It had been many, many years since I was out of MTN, and so I didn't anticipate any of those fools would be looking for me, even though they still had access to my content. And guys, I put in my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, my Twitter, my TikTok, you know, in that about me page, where it is that you say like find me also here, and then there's like TikTok, Instagram, blah blah wada. Those what do they call them, widgets, those widgets that you put to basically represent TikTok, Twitter, whatever. And then put the link in the background to take you to the page. Yeah, Twitter. I put all of my places there where it is that I upload content, type establishment thing. And then I left it 4 months ago, and believe you me, people that last knew me and saw me in 2014, who had access to my link of my blog, went into my blog as recently as 2 months ago, and it was quiet in my blog as at like maybe 2 months from that date. Like I told you, last time I wrote in my blog was maybe 4 months ago. Yeah, so they noticed that my latest activity was about 4 months ago, and then they went across my pages, went to my contact page, my about me page, and in the about me and the contact page, I put widgets for TikTok, for Twitter, for this, for that. Do you understand? Yeah, I put them all there. YouTube. And one guy found my YouTube channel that way. One guy found my YouTube channel that way. Clicked on that YouTube link, it then took him to my YouTube. One guy found my YouTube channel that way by clicking on my little widget inside my blog, and followed me to my blog. Alright, and from that following of me, discovered that I am still as active as I was in 2014 in my endeavors to proliferate the gospel. It's just that I have stopped writing, but now I'm talking every single day on my YouTube. Scrolled through my content, watched some of it, watched my exercise videos and everything, and then decided that he wants me for a wife, and then slapped me with Korobela. And this guy claimed to be a Christian. At some point I had a crush on him. The only reason why he's even cyber stalking me is because he's one day was sitting in his couch and was like, I wonder what that Karabo is doing. He had put witchcraft on me years prior, and then decided to check up on how I'm doing ever since then. Finds my YouTube channel, realizes I'm still thriving, and then instead of basically being satisfied that I'm going nowhere, he then decides, oh, let me go back to the drawing board and change my strategy where this is concerned. I'll take her for a wife. And this is why I'm always complaining about Korobela. I'm always complaining about love spells. I'm always complaining about these men that use spells in order to make women fall in love with them, like experimenting with sorcery. That's a country for you that is frankly uninhabitable. Do you understand? For a Christian, where it is that pagan men want you, men that are into sorcery, back funa. There's so much rape going on all over the show. You see things, they don't care. Everybody just keeps on experimenting. That's the climate. And the people who do that call themselves Christians. They call themselves Christians. I keep getting what is this? Like in the dream that I'm busy explaining to you guys now. I saw brand spanking new cast Witchcraft by a friend, a former friend that has not seen me in years. But you see, the thing is, they remember the link to your blog, or they go to your Facebook page and they then follow the links in your Facebook page, and then they find you still thriving, still talking, still basically standing on a rooftop and doing a better thing, and then they cast another spell. That if that's your country, if that's where you live, if at all, you cannot just leave links on a Facebook page. You cannot just leave links. You cannot just continue to upload on YouTube and trust that people who know you, that happen upon your content, who likely even cyber stalked you, they actually followed you, they searched for you until they found something of yours, and when they went in there, they then like lost satisfaction with what it is that you ended up as. So they want to destroy you. And when they find you going about your father's business, they're like, this is not what I wanted. I wanted more than this. I wanted finished and klar. I wanted complete destruction. But this here is thriving, and the glory of God is oozing out of it. Remember, I told you that the Lord sometimes uses weakness, if anything a lot of times, in order to manifest his true glory in a person. So when you are suffering and you have nothing to your name, and yet you still inspire the covetousness of people who have everything, that is God's glory oozing out of you. And so if they still envy you in squalor and poverty enough to bewitch you, that is an ecosystem that is not sustainable for a Christian to succeed in. Because if you were successful, you would have saboteurs who work with you in the office, who are in close proximity to you enough to basically exsanguinate the glory of God before it is fully emanated. And I will explain to you what I mean by that. The dream that I had, it was in the context of this apartment of mine, and it was also in the context of that other one, Yako downtown Joburg, right? That I explained to you, that exploded. And that was God showing me basically a climate of somebody is trying to burn down the beginnings of recovery from sorrow. They're trying to keep the grain going. You know how that ANC building was bombed because they were trying to block progress in the country from moving forward. The ANC has gone entirely evil. It is nefarious now, but it started out a pretty good bet for the new democracy. It started out a pretty good bet for us all. It's gone awry. It's a derelict child. It is a truant. It has stopped rocking up for school lessons. It has forgotten its first love, but it started out all right. And so it was a good thing that the ANC was trying to do and whatever at the time. Now when I hear ANC, I cringe. Do you understand? So do not mistake me for praising ANC. I hate them with a purple passion. I can't stand the ANC. They are destroying the country. Let's just put that out there. But they haven't always been like that. They're a derelict. They're defunct now. They don't belong in parliament. They don't belong in leadership. They should by now have been extracted, ripped off from that place, but they're still doing what they're doing. Like, they have completely derelicted their duties towards the country in favor of themselves. So ANC, schmaANC. But let's just maintain the fact that ANC was at some point trustworthy. Okay? And so the dream was God showing me a time during ANC's trustworthiness where they were actually trying to rebuild the country and somebody coming to oppose it. My dream happened in a sectional title that was similar to that of where it is that my cousins were living in, but the house on the inside was my apartment from, what do you call this, from Four Ways. The apartment of which I intended from it to basically start a future move forward without my enemies. From that apartment, I was intending to get a new job, look into the future, pray, trust the Lord to bring a husband along. I was going to, once employed, also search all of the South Africa for a church, since the old church that I was in had betrayed me. I was on a mission to start again, a clean slate, a new leaf. After that level of betrayal, that's where I was at. And however, because I'm a gospel servant, I continue to write, I continue to upload on my YouTube channel, share my struggles, etc. These people from the past that persecuted me because of finding my blog were now obsessed with what's going on with me. They should have just left me alone when they caught wind in the grapevine, or even found out from me reporting it in my blog that I lost my job now. I am unemployed. They should have been satisfied that they prospered to pull the rug from under my feet. They should have been satisfied that I was basically taken out of the market by making sure that no man is looking at me. They should have been like, oh, I finally got Garaboy, I wanted her. But remember, their envy has always been over my godliness. And so they heaped abuse on me because I walked away from the debauched life. They continued to follow me. And in following me, when I was living in that apartment, I got my spiritual gifting. I had already understood what was going on there. Dreams, guys. I would just get dreams and dreams and dreams and dreams of people that are busy bombing me. Gilly one, I was in isolation. I was in solitude. I was trying to get my life back. I was trying to meet new friends. I was trying to make a new future for me in a country where it is that I was living, given that all of my old friends and my past has spat me out. I was going to go and grab a new future from the age of 30, 31. I was going to start from scratch, like I didn't have high school friends, like I did not have anybody from varsity, like I did not have people that I gathered for myself up to that age. I was going to start again. I was planning on starting again. But I had to get a job first. I had to actually have somewhere that I was going every day. I had to be finding a new church, driving to places, meeting people, shaking hands, being awkward, and then having lunch, and then becoming best friends. I had to start somewhere. I had to start. But the level of hatred of God by South Africa is so exorbitant that I was met, guys, even with people that I met in my complex, because I was always in the clubhouse. With people even that I met in the complex where I was staying, they would be okay with me for 5 seconds, and then they would start to glitch and twitch. They would start to manifest demons, because that's just how unsaved South Africa is. I would meet people that I would would claim are also Christian, and they would start manifesting on me. And so I had never felt more alone. I had never felt more alone. I was like, it cannot be like this everywhere. This cannot be South Africa. How in the world do I come from a company that all agreed to persecute me out of a job? All of MTN. You're gonna tell me there wasn't a single bloodboard fiery standing in the gap prepared to take a bullet for me, Christian, in the whole building? In that big company. Are you gonna tell me nobody heard my case and reached out? Not even one person. My case was so big and so taboo that everybody knew about it in MTN South Africa. Maybe even portions of group. And yet not even a single person reached out on some kind of what's going on. I used to attend some church at work. No one from that church reached out to me after I lost everything. How does an entire company with thousands of staff members, not have even one Christian that is concerned for a fellow saint? It's not like they didn't know I was Christian. Like I told you, I used to go to a church at work. I was on their mailing list. They had my number. One of them was one of my resources in my projects. And so she could have called me on some girl. Whoa, like what's going on? Just yesterday we were in a meeting and now nothing. No one reached out to me. That is South Africa. God was already showing me. Hore Karabo, you are living in Sodom that is posing as Galilee. You are living in Sodom that's posing as Jerusalem. You are living in Sodom that is posing as Ephesus. Posing as Philadelphia in Turkey. You're living in, basically, it's like the church at Pergamum, South Africa. I know where you live, where Satan has his throne. I was living where Satan had his throne as an individual member of the body of Christ, and God was telling me, do not hold to the teachings of the Nicolaitans, who call themselves, and also I know that you oppose those who call themselves Jews but are not. Like, basically just hold on and don't fall apart in this like place where Satan has his throne. I discovered that I was living in Pergamum, where everybody that was professing Christ was just a poser. The church at Pergamum is also the same one, I believe, where it is that God's disciples are tempted to turn away from God by consuming food sacrificed to idols and by participating in sexual immorality so that they can walk in Balaam's era. Yeah. South Africa, I came to learn, is the church in Pergamum. The lack of support when I lost everything, albeit having frequented my face in Christian circles for months in the run-up to perhaps even years, was just alarming. And so I wanted to do a better thing. I was like, okay, I guess now I'm smarter. I've learned a lesson. What I will do now is start again. Basically go and like, and start from scratch. And in my attempt to start from scratch, they were like over my dead body. I had zombies that refused that I should be okay. Grabbed me by dewashing it from the back and were like, no, you're gonna stay right where it is that you are. We're gonna keep you here. So people stalked me, they followed me on my blog, saw that I was still suffering, and everything I was talking about, they were like over my dead body. Guys, they bewitched my job interviews, my job application process. Guys, there was one agent that I spoke to, a colored lady, and when I was talking to her in the phone, she started to yell at me. She was literally yelling at me because I made mention of the fact that I was basically explaining to her what happened to me at MTN, and we ended up having a conversation about we were talking about eventually what in the world, like this woman, she was trying to make me settle. She was trying to make me downgrade from what it is that I came from. When I didn't get just any job, when I was explaining to her what happened to me. And I then went on right ahead to basically be like, would you do that if you were in my position? You know your own goals, you know your own dreams, you know what it is that you studied for, you know what you worked very hard tooth and nail for, and you also know your own work ethic, your own innocence. So for you to settle and just downgrade and start from scratch because people pulled the rug from underneath your feet, it is going to cause so much bitterness in you, given that you were innocent, that you would never really truly be able to walk in job satisfaction. We were having a conversation along that nature, and somewhere along the way in the conversation, she was like, then you're gonna stay unemployed, then you're gonna just stay in this situation, you need to learn how to reach yes, because she was screaming at me on the phone until I was like, thank you and goodbye. I literally got yelled at by a recruitment agent that wanted me to settle. That's the level of demonic manifestation by people that I have endured in South Africa. Can't even explain to you the grief that I have endured. I've learned some lessons. I am living where Satan has his throne. I am living in Pergamum. This country is a done deal. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's over for South Africa. And anybody that still calls themselves a Christian, Nigupi, where are you? I'm sorry. Is anybody out there? Because I should not be in this position. You call yourselves a Christian church, a nation, and yet Christians are enduring this level of hardship, like some of them that you don't even know about. You can't be. The Lord should be giving you dreams, visions. The Lord should be helping you along, enabling you to understand the danger that is facing the church. And if that's not happening, it means you are not with an ear to hear, neither eyes to see. You're just enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin, and so therefore have no regard for those who are truly suffering in the body of Christ. No regard. You're pampered and you're spoiled. You are not persecuted because you are of them. The world loves you because you are of the world. South Africa is a fallen church, and the true body of Christ is a remnant so small. It is a remnant so small in this country. So incredibly negligible is the remnant in this land of believers that the Lord is going to fix the sorrow and the pain of these people by simply just taking them out and then handing South Africa over to its reprobate mind. These people bewitched the living daylights out of my prospects for work. God, I'm a Christian. No weapon formed against us prospers. So God could have, indeed, just been like, no, you're not going to block Karabo from getting a job. But he didn't. Why didn't the Lord block it? Why didn't the Lord just give me success anyway? Because herein lies the scenario. If God did give me a job, if God did miraculously just basically put me in a position somewhere, and I was able to now work again, there was going to be an MTN volume 2.0. I was born again for 2 years before I got persecuted at MTN. No, 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years before I got persecuted for my faith. I was already starting to get persecuted by my family prior to that. I was already getting bewitched by friends that I did not know were bewitching me. But for my whole organization to make a decision to just boot me out of a job when I'm completely innocent, that happened after 2 years of my religion, of my Christianity. So therefore, that was the Lord showing me the ramping up of spiritual psychosis in the country. I had been getting dreams of a lot of witchcraft happening in MTN as a company. Like as in staff members was just so busy with each other that it was just a cantankerous, chaotic cesspool. I once had a dream of MTN in the center of the company. Go downstairs in phase 1 where there is a coffee shop. It was a whole big like Olympic sized swimming pool, evidencing basically water where the Lord was showing me employees, instead of walking from phase 1 to phase 2 in this company that you're living in, it's like they're swimming. Everybody is being blocked from getting to where they need to get. Colleagues are bewitching each other so badly that it's like they're all walking in water. When they get to work, they're not walking kamoya and able to fluidly just slice through the air, but they're resisted. Literally, the floor of the lowest level, go MTN, was an Olympic-sized swimming pool instead of a walkway. God was showing me that people don't walk here, Karabo. They are resisted by metsi. Have you ever tried walking underwater? You know, it's very hard. You can't just, with the same level of speed, walk in water as you would in air, normally, outside on the ground. That's how much witchcraft was flying around in the room at MTN. So it was inevitable that somebody as prayerful as me and somebody as consecrated as me would ultimately have an entire, band of colleagues lie about her and get her fired from her job. All people, many of whom, were professing Christians. With that level of witchcraft happening in an environment, a Christian cannot stand. So if I did get successfully interviewed for another job and start again from scratch, it's okay. Start another job, it's fine. Because at the beginning of me losing, when I lost my job, it was the beginning stages of me being a program manager from having been a project manager. I was not a program manager for long enough to interview for a program management job in any company. So I was prepared to start again from project management at a minimum. So if I had gotten another job as a project manager and basically taken 2, 3, 5,000 rands pay cut, just so I could at least, get it boosted from there. Like clockwork, inevitably, I would have been endured if at all the current status of the country is anything to go by. I would have inevitably, like clockwork, do you understand what I'm saying? Been persecuted in the same way that I was persecuted at MTN. I would have been persecuted in the same way. I keep on getting a flash vision of multi-choice, DSTV, multi-choice. The devil is trying to say to me, if you had moved to multi-choice, you wouldn't have endured what it is that you endured at MTN. A good 2 to 3 months before I lost everything at MTN, MultiChoice wanted me. They wanted me, but I did not want to work for MultiChoice because it was going against my faith, my beliefs. The content, the job that I would be doing would require me to basically proliferate rubbish to people that I don't stand by. Their content, you get my point. I was going to be a project manager there, but within the content management space, and some of the stuff that I would have had to work with would have been licentious content, adult entertainment, and I was just like, I can't work for a media company as a Christian. It's too much risk that I would happen upon things that are going to put me in a moral dilemma as the job that I'm working, and I'm not going to be able to turn down projects based on the content they're in without meeting with trouble with my boss. So even though I wanted to leave MTN, I was putting my CV out in the market because I was trying to get out. That's true. MultiChoice having wanted me as badly as they wanted me, being also a big company in the country, I rejected it for spiritual reasons. I rejected MultiChoice for spiritual reasons, and a good 2-3 months down the line, I then lose my job at MTN. I keep getting a flash vision of MultiChoice, the devil being on some, you should have gone to MultiChoice, you religious, holier than thou, sanctimonious rubbish. You turned down a job somewhere for your religion, and here it is that they kicked you to the curb. And now you can't even work anymore. And I'm like, oh, so I was supposed to compromise what I thoroughly stood for in Christ so as to not lose a job? The world hates disciples. This is the cross that I am taking, and I'm bearing it. So at MultiChoice, I was going to meet with challenges, the very same ones that I foresaw to a point of rejecting the call to go and work there, is the very same thing that ultimately caused me to lose my job at MTN. And so any other organization in this country would have persecuted me for my values, even if it was not the kind of company that would necessarily cause a person to have a moral dilemma. Like if you work for maybe a Tiger brand, like it's an FMC, a food brand, it's just food, for crying out loud, they would nonetheless find something that is going to mess you up in terms of your moral virtues, what you stand for, like just unsavory business practices. If you want to grow, you're gonna have to play dirty, be below the belt. MTN was a telecommunications company. The product offering, there was nothing therein that was standing against the gospel in totality, but nonetheless they managed to find something that would afflict my Christianity. They managed to find it. So what I'm trying to explain right now is that anywhere else that I would have gone, I would have endured what happened to me at MTN. It was going to be a volume 2.0. a volume 2.0. And now, if at all, I lost my job at MTN because what it is that was my reputation prior to me losing my job, I could have been given a second chance. It's like a juvenile that has or a person that has no priors, that finds themselves in a bad bunch, and so a judge has leniency on them because they have no prior convictions, and so they get away with murder, which is a little bit of community service, because they don't have a reputation for just being reckless with society's values. MTN, at the place of losing my job, I had no priors. I had lost my case at the CCMA. I was very frank and honest about that. I was open and honest about what happened because I did not want to lie, right? Typesetup thing. And if at all you lose your case at the CCMA and get another job, anyway, essentially you're looked at like a person that has no priors. And so because you have no priors, they're prepared to give you a chance. They're prepared to give you a chance because you should not write a person off. Life happens. So companies that would have been prepared to give me a chance based on my lack of priors, based on my good track record up to MTN. If at all I had lost my job again, having been sabotaged out of a career a second time, and lost a case at the CCMA a second time, now I'm a convicted criminal in the sight of recruitment agencies. Now I am a person with a record, with a trend. And so I was going to lose my clout. I was unfairly dismissed. I lost my case at the CCMA. All different kinds of weird crap happened in my life. I am obviously innocent. My documentation speaks volumes for my innocence. If at all I had, in a second company, endured the same thing, I would have looked like one of those people making excuses, claiming that they love Jesus, but really they are dishonest. Everywhere they go, everybody gives them grief. Everybody can't be wrong. The Lord refused to let me go out there, because then I was going to come up on the other side, given that I was always going to get persecuted, looking like a person that just can't keep her hands out of trouble. I was going to end up looking like I just can't stop fighting with my bosses. I am the kind of person that I insubordinate my bosses. I can't work with my colleagues. I was going to be made to look like when I had a whole history where I stayed at MTN for 5 whole years. I was collegial with people in that company for 5 whole years. And they were going to take all that collegiality that I was able to walk in with my colleagues and make it look as if the one day I went crazy and stopped being collegial. So since I can't work with people, I was going to now be made unemployed permanently, unemployable also, and MTN would have been made to look good. It would have basically gotten away with the murder that it committed against me because of the persecution I endured in latter places. Why would other places have inevitably persecuted me? Because this is South Africa. Plus, remember, a whole bunch of witchcraft was in operation. And the way that witchcraft works is that it causes the environment around you to treat you the way that the witchcraft desires to bring out an end result. And so colleagues will mistreat you and hope to bring a reaction out of you. And that reaction is what will cause you to get called into HR and then ultimately fired. So I was just going to be met with so much resistance, and it would have taken a lot of spiritual maturity in me to essentially survive the mistreatment of my person by colleagues. The same clout I held at MTN, I would never have been able to hold it again. I would never have been able to speak my mind and be a professional as I used to be without having a target on my back and without having every word I speak weighed on like I'm suspicious or whatever. So it would only take all these years down the line for me to understand why God left me unemployed. It will only take that. The level of sabotage in this country is astronomical. I don't know how anybody is maintained. The level of sabotage against regular folk, but especially Christians, I do not know how anyone at all is maintained in this nation, in any job, if they truly love God. I feel as if they have to just hunker down a lot of times. They have to take a lot of rubbish lying down. They have to just keep quiet because they gotta pay some bills. That's why people want me to have a child, because if at all I would have a kid, I would shut up a lot of times about things that I am entirely unprepared to shut up about. I would also swallow a lot of pills I don't want to swallow. I would settle for things that I would not under normal circumstances settle for the sake of feeding my kid, for the sake of keeping my child healthy. So being single without any children, having never been married, has made me a very tough case for my enemies because I have nothing to lose except my own life. So I stand on the rooftops for what I believe in solidly without shifting shadows, not even one iota. And it's causing everybody to spaz and lose their minds and throw so much witchcraft at me so as to ultimately bring a handler into my life. Something that will finally cause me to do what they want me to do already. That is South Africa. It's uninhabitable for Christians. I don't know if there's anywhere where it is habitable for Christians on earth right now, but I'm pretty certain that South Africa is not a country that you should be trying to move to. If you're a true blood-bought fiery Christian, if you are on fire for Jesus, you cannot live in this land without affliction. It's impossible. Why am I enduring this? Why me? Why am I enduring this? I cannot be alone. I cannot be alone. So everyone that's claiming they're Christian, there's something going on. There's double standards. They are either witches under wraps, or they're not truly saved, or I can tell you what's going on, but I cannot be going through this by myself. Meaning that there's only a remnant of Christians, true ones at that, in this country. And wherever it is that they're at, the whole nation is working to make them settle. It's working hard to make them compromise and act like God is not God. Act like, properly, like exactly what Balaam's era was. Trying to cause God's people to eat food sacrificed to idols and commit sexual immorality. Anything at all to get Christians watered down. That's your land.